Hey y'all, happy baby Friday. I am real thrilled today to have my colleague and friend, Christine Hall, on with me.
Thanks,
And
Betty.
I want to tell you in honor of you coming in, how you do your today is national whatever day. I, I, I looked up this day in history and I found a really great one. Today is the birthday of the 19th Amendment. So on August 18th in 1920, today women got the right to vote.
Yes.
Yes.
We're
So
big
that was
voters
great.
in my house. So my parents are immigrants and my father was adamant, like that's the only thing Americans have to do is vote. So we are so proud to be able to vote in our house.
That is great. Yes, yes. So, kudos to all the ladies out there, and make sure you exercise that right every time it comes up. Because I always say you can't complain about it if you didn't vote.
Oh, you and I
So,
are on the
yeah,
same page, Betty. And
yep,
that kind of rolls nicely into our topic today
it
about
certainly
that
does. How about you?
responsibility we have.
I didn't even think of that. I guess I'm smarter than I thought when I threw it out there. So, but for people that are logging in and listening, make sure, as usual, go ahead and start throwing comments in the chat for us. So if you have questions or anything for us, so that way we have some locked and loaded when we get to certain things. Also put out a little hey, to us to let us know where you're calling in from, so that we can give you a little shout out there. Oh, Catherine, oh, that's nice. Catherine says she loves that happy baby Fridays. So that's good.
Although,
It-
you know what, Betty, a lot of us, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's just another day.
I know, but it gets, it's baby Friday. You're starting to get there, it starts to get the vibe going.
Love it.
So, so for those of y'all that are on, I'm sure most of the people that are attending, they also listen to Coding with Christine Hall. So they're aware of who you are. But in case, for anybody that might be joining new, that is new to one or both of us, Christine is my guest today, and she has over 30 years experience in the healthcare administration and information management field. She is a current chairwoman for the AAPC Billing Advisory Committee. That's pretty cool, Christine. And she is also a very skilled educator and a national speaker. I just listened to you do your E&M thing, by the way, for that local chapter on Saturday. So very lively session. And she is also a core subject matter expert in compliance, and you can watch her on the compliance guy on that coding I watched that too on Monday. So I catch you a couple different places, so you can kind of see Christine all over. And today we are going to be talking about the global surgery package, because it has come up again from when they did what they did in 2017. It was required that they look at it in 5 years. Well, it's been 5 years. So it's back on the proposed rule again. So I wanted to discuss that and put it out there for people that they really need to pay attention and make comments. They need to make their vote on whether this is a good thing or not. So, but we have Haley from Marion, North Carolina. Hey there. And Allison Trujillo is on. Hey, Allison, she's a regular person that comes in to listen on my stuff. Well, happy pre-Friday from Sarah. And Maria from Georgia. Misty says, love you girls. That she's here from Jacksonville. Yes.
Misty?
Yes.
That's awesome.
In Arizona, we got California. So we have people from coming in from all over. So that's one of the things. I was on Jennifer McNamara's new rebranded podcast yesterday.
I heard.
And one of the things we talked about was, this is what I love. I'm a in-person, that's I feed off the people that are sitting there in front of me, And so I really had a hard time adjusting with COVID and virtual. But the good thing about it is what I was just reading, this expansion of being able to hit these people from all over. I get people that come in on here too from like India and other countries that call in and listen in to these things. And so it's expanded that so much, that's a good thing about it, is being able to
Yeah.
reach so much
Yeah.
of a broader base.
And I was
So
very much
that's neat.
like you, Betty. Like I still struggled talking to an empty computer screen. Like
Yeah.
I really need to see my people. So I've embraced virtual, but there are times that I'm presenting and there's nobody there. They're there, but I don't see them.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that Zoom has made me more comfortable in front of the camera, but I'm still hoping that people will turn their cameras on and interact like this. It makes such a difference when you're looking at somebody.
Yes. I had to do a presentation to a whole group of physicians once, and it was virtual. And they had the system set up with that big com thing, like in the middle of
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
table.
Yeah.
So we start to go on, and it won't work. So the lady comes on and says, well, it's not going to work. So you just give your presentation, and then we'll take a break every like 20 minutes. And then I'll get on my phone and tell you if they have any questions. And it was 4 hours, Christine, 4 hours to nothing. I was speaking to.
No.
It
That's
was,
so tough.
it was the worst.
Oh,
And then she'd go on.
yep.
And so I didn't know, are they, because I like to make little jokes and little, it's like, I
Right.
don't know if they think I'm funny, if they think I'm an idiot, if they,
How do
it's
you
like,
gauge your
no
audience?
idea.
I
Oh,
need my people. Oh,
I
that
was
must
like,
have been
oh,
so
it's,
challenging.
it's so tough.
Yeah.
But also, Kimberly, Jolivette Williams, of course, was on. I flashed her up, and Jennifer, who, as we were just talking about, and I was her guest. She's listening in. So hey there, Jennifer, and here we've got, like we were saying, here's somebody from India.
Oh,
So
that's
welcome
wonderful.
everybody. It just is so nice. And Jennifer, thank you. She said, "Wow, that's terrible." So I'm glad when people feel my pain for those kind of things. It's rough.
It is,
Um,
for
but
sure.
so before we start into the global surgery package talk, since you haven't been, on with me for a little bit, is there anything that you want to like tell people about? Anything new you're doing or got coming up, like the E&M talk that you just did?
So I am scheduled to present for a lot of AAPC chapters. I will be in New Orleans with my good friend Jennifer McNamara
New
coming up in a
Orleans. I
couple of
love New
weeks.
Orleans.
We are at the Healthcare Advocate Summit. So any of you that are going to be at the Healthcare Advocate Summit, please stop by, say hi. I can't wait to see you. So I went to Denver, went to AAPC HealthCon. That was incredible, Betty. It seemed like the energy there, we just needed to be back in person with each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be friends, but to put your arms around your friend and give them a big hug and appreciate them in real time, in real
Yeah.
life. It was incredible. And I had the best time. I actually won the Social Butterfly Award.
Well,
Surprising.
I could see that.
Yeah. So if you check out my website, Sterling Global Solutions, Lexi does an amazing job of keeping all of our up-to-date presentations there. And we have a few surprises coming for 2023. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to put it out
Ooh.
there. We got some fun things happening 2023. So look forward to that. And I've collaborated with a lot of companies over the next few months. So you'll be seeing some of that come out. So
Good.
keep your eyes open.
Nice, nice, nice. All righty. So, I gotta make sure. Okay, good. That's going. All right. So let's go ahead and get into our discussion for today, global surgery package. So I just put a couple information things together. I wrote an article for BC Advantage on this subject. And that's what made me think about, doing the broadcast for it. And it will be coming out this week. So whenever it comes out, I'll, share it with everybody
Oh,
on
that'd be great.
LinkedIn. I'll post about it and stuff. But yeah, there are more than 4,000 services that are paid as global surgery package procedures. And I didn't realize it was that many, like I said, until I went, because you use your
Right.
piece. You know what I mean? So you never sit there and think about, wow, how many? It's more than 4,000. So this change, or however they decide to do this, is going to affect a lot of people. Think
It
of all the
is.
specialties from the 10s to the 60s through the 60s. If you go through your head, okay, 10 dermatology,
Yeah.
20s, ortho, 30, and you just kind of think of that. It's, it's going to really hit. And even for those non-surgical specialties, like, your general practice, and they
Hmm.
do minor procedures.
Right.
So it's going to affect them too,
Everybody does.
so
Peds, your
yep.
geriatricians do surgery. It's, minor surgeries. This is really going to touch everybody. And it's so funny. I was going to tell you this. Funny that we're going to talk about this topic, because I have been saying to my providers for years, there's so much in the background, the business of medicine, that our providers don't really understand. And those visits, those post-operative visits that are built into these, if we don't report them correctly with the proper codes, because lots of practices you go in there and they say, yeah, we don't do the 99024, they don't pay for it. And I say, yeah,
Oh,
but how do they know
they
you're
already
doing it?
did.
Oh my God. So now here, look, it's in the proposal. And it just seems like it's what I have been saying for years and years and years, that
Yeah.
it can go either way. It can either be a benefit, or it could be a
Yep.
disappointment later,
Yep.
depending on whether or not we're doing that. So
Yeah.
here
Preaching
we
to the
are.
choir. I said
Mhm.
that forever. And then when they came out with that in 2017, with those the states that had that, I was like, I told you.
Mhm.
I was like, you have to report the services. And when they would say to me, we don't get paid for those, I'm like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
You've gotten paid in the package. You need to show you're performing them so that the payers know you're completing the package. How do they know? They're not
Right.
going to take your word for it. So that's kind of where it started going. Because back then, if you remember, CMS just wanted to do away with the global package right away. They
Mhm.
were just like, no,
Mhm.
but Congress wouldn't let them do it. So
Right.
they had to do this thing with the states, and having some of them report, some they had to make them study it first. So that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
And now they're coming up with, pick A, B, C, or D, what do you want?
Right.
But with the global package, you've got the three sets, you have the 0, 10, and 90. There used to be, and I'm sure you remember, there used to be the 45-day one. Remember, we had
Yep.
another one,
Yep. We did.
and they kind
That's
of
been
threw
gone a
that one
long
out.
time.
I know. Well, we're the old hens. I
I
think.
know.
so, so
I know. I
with
just
the
became a
zero,
grandma, so I know.
with the 0-day package, that's just for the procedure, the pre and post op on the day of the procedure. So you're just dealing with your favorite today, right,
Mhm.
Christine?
That's my
When we do
word. What's
it.
going on today?
And that's where we have our modifier 25, that
Mhm.
we have all the other issues, but that's a whole separate broadcast. But,
Absolutely.
so that's with our zeros. So with our 10-day packages, got the procedure itself, the services on the day of the procedure. So still that E&M piece that's
Mhm.
bundled in there, and then 10 days after. So it's really like 11 days, right?
Right.
And then our major one is our 90-day. Again, the procedure itself, the stuff on the day prior to
Mhm.
the procedure itself, and then 90 days after. So again, it's 91 days when you count it that way. So, you know, when they put together these packages and started to do the how they're figuring out fees, because
Mhm.
before they had the fee schedule, it was just usual and customary and what
Right.
they felt was a good payment, right? So
Mhm.
depending on what state you lived in and which payer you sent it, it was all over the place with what you were getting paid. Even Medicare, it was like, oh, if that looks good, yeah, we'll pay it.
Right. That
It's like, what?
that was, that was something that was normal for such a very long time.
Yep.
And I got to be honest, I was a little relieved as we started fine tuning the RVUs, transitioning into the RVRVSs. I was like, thank you, because someone's already done the hard work for us.
Right. Right.
Someone's analyzed this.
When they first came out with RBRVS, I was working at a place, and they could not. It was before they had all of the stuff that figured everything out for
Right.
you.
Mhm.
I had to figure out the RBRVS calculation for like hundreds of procedures. Oh, it was a
You would
nightmare. I
get the
was
big
so
book. You remember the
oh my
big book? Yeah, the
yes.
big
When
book.
you go to the CPT symposium, they had a separate book that they would give with the RBRVS stuff in it. I was like, oh my goodness. But the global surgery package, they've used it since 1992.
Mhm.
So again, prior to that, it was just like whatever you think, and people were billing all over the place.
Yeah.
And Medicare likes to package things, because when they package things, then usually, you're gonna get a chop in your price. Just like, if you go and buy the Happy Meal, if you buy them separately, it costs more. You get the Happy Meal, you get it better. Well, it comes
Right.
the other way. So they're
Yeah.
like, well, we're gonna bundle all this for you, but then the RVUs go down. So it was kind of like but then they tried to figure out how many E&Ms are we
Right.
putting in this, and how many. So they got the RUC committee, which looks for the RVUs and figures these things out. They send out surveys to physicians, which is another big point.
Yeah.
If your physician gets a RUC survey on procedures that he or she performs, please tell them to fill them out, for one. And for two, this is not the time to say, I'm the best in the world and I can do that in 5 minutes, because they take that stuff and they average it. And if a bunch of physicians are out there saying, oh, yeah, this is real. Oh, this is good for me, and I do it so fast. Well, your RVUs are going to suffer for everybody because of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Right.
Right. I had a provider once that I was asking him about. Uh, I was actually asking him about risk to the patient, and I said, when you're doing those spinal injections, does the fact that the patient has symptomatic Parkinson's with tremors, is that a risk factor? And he looked at me and he goes, not for me, it's not. And I thought, that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're not trying to say you're Superman or trying to
Right.
it's like, seriously, what goes into these things,
Right.
because they put it all together. I mean, the
Right.
RUC committee, and it's amazing when they do that. I mean, they like cost down like how many sheets of what the cost of a sheet of exam paper, and
Yeah.
a tongue depressor if you use one. They put everything in there. So when you get those surveys, fill them out honestly and try to think of everything that's involved in it, so that the fee schedule gets to be appropriate for what you're doing.
Right.
And then
Absolutely.
what they use off of this comes up to this physician time data file, is what CMS, if you want to go look at it. So this is the link to it for people that are watching. So you can go and look, and for every CPT code, it will list out in the surgery section, how many 99214s,
Mm-hmm.
99213s, if there's hospital visits, if it's a major procedure, how many hospital visits involved, and it will show you what they put together to come up with the RVU value and the payment. So I went on to the data and I just pulled one. It's a osteocutaneous flap
Mm-hmm.
20969. Okay. In that, they give you a pre-evaluation time of 120 minutes, so 2 hours. Average pre-positioning time of 0. They're saying that that's not coming into play, but pre-service scrub, dress, and wait, 0.
Mm-hmm.
Median intra-service time, 540 minutes. So from the survey sent out, this is the average that the physicians said, the surgeon said it took them to do that actual procedure itself. And then post-service time of 32 minutes, 2 99212s, 2 99213s, 2 99214s, 8 99231 visits in the hospital, and 1 99238. So they add it all together and they come up with the RVU value for that off of 1,048 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they do for each of these codes, and you can go look it up. So think about that. All of those 99212s, 3s, and 4s I said, if that all went away,
Right. What's your
what that would
payment going to be?
do. Yeah. And do you think little mind sometimes goes to, do you really think that that's all that's going to get taken out of there?
Right. Right. Because
Because
when we factor in an evaluation and management visit, they factor in, just like you were saying, the table paper, the tongue depressor, the time that the medical assistant takes the history, the use of the office suite, what is the electricity,
yep,
what is the rent for that 5 minutes worth of time. And they put all of that together to come up with these the RVUs for the evaluation and management visits. So if we're pulling those away, we're going to be pulling the fees away as well that correlate with all of these expected visits that are included.
yep. So
Yeah.
it's not just going to be the E&M itself that you're going to start to see deducted. The RVU values and what's going to be left over, you're not going to be happy with.
Right.
And I see, in the offices also, if that happens, how many post-op visits, how is the office going to handle that? And, just telling the patients now, all of a sudden, before you come in for post-op stuff and you never saw anything, now you're going to start charging the patients for post-op visits when you never have before. So
I
you're going to have a lot of splaining to do to your
well,
patients.
you make a great point with those RUC surveys as they come out, because I was rereading the information that was in the proposal, and they sent out, they had the RAND company come in and do audits, and they audit absolutely everything. If you read those audits, they're so incredible. But what they found out to be factual is that only 4% of people are actually using or having those post-operative visits or that extended pre-operative visit to support those 10-day global surgeries. And then only 38% of the 90-day global surgeries. Why are we paying all of this money for those global surgeries if most of the components aren't even being utilized?
Yep.
And that's because of technology, of course. We are able to perform these surgeries better. Our preventive measures for infections are better. We have so much more in place now that I understand why maybe you don't need as many post-operative visits. But do you also need that much payment for those procedures then? Not to
Exactly.
make any doctors upset with me, because again, we struggle to make sure that they're getting paid appropriately, but that's why it's so important to be reporting those post-operative visits, making
Yep.
sure that you're coding the diagnosis, whether it is adding some of those Z codes to give the status of where we are with those conditions that we've had surgeries for. Are they still in the follow-up process? Maybe it's resolved, but we need to do a final visit to make sure that we can check that box there, they're ready to go.
Yep.
So many of those things that we have a tendency to miss.
Yeah. And the complications, right?
Absolutely.
Because that's going to all factor into this RVU value of how often these occur and what gets in there. And CPT makes that big stand and statement in the global surgery, where the surgery section starts, that
Mm-hmm.
any complication is not considered expected and normal. So any complication is outside of the package. But as
Right.
we know, Medicare didn't like that too much. So they no, unless you
They
have to
have
go
their
back to the
own
OR,
package.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you get into that kind of thing too, where what's going to happen as far as that goes. If there's no package, then are those going to start to be, I mean, it just, your head starts to
Yeah.
swim, right?
Yeah,
At
I
least
can
my
go
little
both
head.
ways real quickly. I
Yeah.
can see the pro and the con so very quickly
Yep.
happening there. And there's only so much that we can do, Betty. You and I both, I'm sure that you submit your comments. I always submit my comments. Sometimes I feel like when they read my comments, they're like, yes, Christine, we know you feel strong about this. Almost like my local congressman, I email him a lot sometimes, like, what are we doing about this? And what about that? And I need a new light on this corner. I'm sure when he sees my emails, he's like, oh, it's her again. But I feel like, how are we going to influence changes if we don't participate? So commenting during the proposal is something that all of us can do. You,
Right.
me, our provider, our administrator, the more the merrier. with
Right.
real
Definitely.
solutions.
Well, and just to think about when they were first, remember when the E&M revisions started, and
Hmm.
first CMS came up with a great idea of only having 3 levels, right? They were going to get rid of and just
Right,
have the 3,
right, right.
and
That
they
didn't
got
fly.
more comments on that than they had gotten like ever. And that was one of the big reasons why they were like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's not such a hot idea. It was because of people commented,
Yeah.
so it matters. And for this post-op global surgery thing, here, and I just noticed when I typed it in, I put 2 dash, it should be a 0. So it's 2017, so 9 states, had to start reporting their post-op visits, right? Because they
Hmm.
wanted to do away with it. They couldn't. So they said, okay, we have to study it. So the states, our lovely state of Florida was one of them,
Hmm.
Kentucky, Louisiana, Nevada, New Jersey, North Dakota, Ohio, Oregon, and Rhode Island. For certain services, they had to go and say, well, we'll pick the services. They had to report the 99024 with those to show the post-op visits so they could study it. And like you said, Christine, there were 2 reports that came out and it didn't do so hot, and then Rand came out with theirs in 2019 that said, those abysmal percentages that you were giving. So, now it's been 5 years, and that was part of the congressional thing that came out,
Hmm.
was that you had to look at it every 5 years. So now it's been 5 years. So in the 2066 page
I
proposed
know.
rule, you get that everything and I'm just like, oh, seriously? It just, man, everything but the kitchen sink is in there, right? So
Everything.
as I'm reading through it, I see the I was like, oh, so I start looking at it, and they have come up with 4 choices. What they looked at it, and they said they believe that the global surgery package needs to be reviewed again,
Hmm.
and they don't think the services are valued properly, since it appears, because nobody's reporting 99024,
Right.
that they're overpaying for this. So they have 4 different proposals.
Solutions, possible solutions.
Yeah. So their
Hmm.
first one is to revalue all 10 and 90-day global surgical packages at one time. Just boom, we're going to do it
Right.
all, one fell swoop. 2 is revaluing only the 10-day packages, leaving the 90-day alone. 3, revaluing the 10-day and some 90-day. So they're going to kind of pick and choose. Wouldn't
Hmm.
you love to be in that conversation?
No.
So who are you going to pick? Are you going to go for ortho? Are you going to go for cardiothoracic? Who gets chosen in this night? Are you going to pick some from everybody so nobody can complain you're picking on them? I
Yeah.
mean,
And it's going to be tough because I was reading it again today, and there was a few things that they were talking about. One, of course, is the number of post-operative care visits that are just not those follow-up care visits that are not being used. The timing of post-operative care when that's being provided, and then who's providing the follow-up care, because there's a lot of patients that the specialists will hand back over to the primary care during that post-operative period, and primary care actually sees them for evaluation and management visits because they didn't perform the surgeries, and the surgeons are still getting paid for the rest of that post-operative period. So they were able to identify some significant problems out there, and again, like you said, they have 4 possible solutions, but where are we going to start? Who are we going to start looking at? Where,
yeah.
I would imagine they're probably going to go for some of those more costly procedures
Oh, I'm
first.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's, with the point you just brought up, when we have the 54, 55, 50, we have the modifiers that show, hey, I'm doing the post-op portion, and the surgeon here, but I know from experience from my days in the
Hmm.
surgical suite, it's hard to coordinate that with an office. Usually the surgeon's office has billed the procedure already, They
Right.
haven't billed it with the modifier, so they've gotten paid for the whole thing. And then you're saying, oh, you can go back to your primary care now. And then the primary care, when they call or they bill it, which is what we used to see, they would bill it for the post-op care and get denied
Mm-hmm.
because the surgeon already billed for the whole package. And then you've got the fight going on, and and it just,
Right.
the coordination for doing that, especially if you have out of state patient they come to our lovely state of Florida during the
Mm-hmm.
winter, they have a water skiing accident,
Right.
or, and then they go back home, to Chicago, and, trying to call and get a hold of that surgeon in Florida that did it and coordinate the offices. I mean, it can get messy and it can get very difficult to do.
And what we find is MGMA did a wonderful study not too long ago, a few years ago. Well, I guess it was too long ago. Time has no relevance to me whatsoever anymore. Um, But MGMA did a wonderful study, and they said, these types of denials that we receive that are not so clean cut, because again, if you had the surgery out of state and you've come back to your primary care, or you're under an HMO and the surgeon says, go see the primary care, however that circle ends up happening, these denials are not so clean cut. And I see a lot of billers scratching their heads, which usually leads to not following through with an appeal, not following through with trying to get paid, or just losing the money because we can't quite put all the pieces of this puzzle together to explain why we should be paid for an evaluation and management visit that was actually a post-op visit.
Yep.
So it
Yeah.
it trickles down. It's everybody's
It
problem.
does. Yes, yes. And so I kind of, sometimes I just think, it would just just do away with it. Let's just it would be so much easier just to not have it. But when you look at it and what goes into it and what the offices are performing and doing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid with any of these four choices that it's not going to get properly valued, if we go down one of these roads. So I think the offices are going to be shocked at what their RVUs end up being.
Absolutely.
But the fourth suggestion they had was to do it to, and this I just find a funny choice, the potentially misvalued code process to identify and reevaluate the misvalued global surgical package over the course of multiple years. Well, that misvalued code, the potentially misvalued code process, every year at the CPT symposium, they discuss those ones that were
Right, right.
potentially misvalued and go, there are over 4,000 services in the global surgery package. It would take them, I mean, we're talking like, what is this going to be, a decade, 2 decade long process to go through the potential? I mean, it would take forever to do that.
Right,
And once
right.
again, you're back to, who do you start with? Who do you pick first? Why are mine on there first? Why didn't you, I don't think that this is a good idea at all.
No,
Is
no, I
no,
couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't
yeah,
agree with you more. And I didn't get through the entire Rand report, but Rand did have some recommendations that they proposed out there that were alternative to these that were included in the proposal, the Medicare proposal. So I'm going to sit down tonight and probably take a better look at that Rand. There's so much that we look at, Betty. There's no way to be absolutely on top of everything, but I think it
yeah,
is important when we're looking at restructuring our global packages. And one thing I want to say is the package and the period are two different things. They're all kind of, we're all talking about the same thing, but the package itself is like the preoperative, the intraoperative, the postoperative complications, those types of things for the period. So whether it's 0, 10, 90-day period, but again, to revalue all of that, that's such an undertaking. But unfortunately, I think it's necessary
yeah,
because if we are allowing for all those, I'm shocked by that example that you gave. If we
yeah,
are paying for or including in payment all of those post-operative visits and they're not happening,
yeah.
then truthfully, that is a little bit overvalued.
Yeah. Well, and think, when you have, I had some major surgery at the beginning of the year, and, my surgeon told me, okay, you're going to come at 6 weeks and then you're going to come at, and then that's, you don't really have to come anymore unless something's going on, and then you go look that procedure up in the data time file and you're like, yeah, that's not quite exactly what, so I think the surgeons forget
Yes.
about what's bundled into there. And, to them, if the patient has an issue, they'll call me, but
Right.
yeah, remember the global surgery package came about in 1992. So 2002, 2012,
Mhm.
2030 years ago, you
Yeah.
know, and what you used to have to see patients for back then versus the,
Right.
better drugs and better treatments and better, sterility,
Yes.
of things and all of that kind of, that it's just not like it used to be. And I don't think that that has, to your, point, it hasn't been taken into account with this stuff, and that it needs to shift, you
Yes.
know. But Misty, she said, so are they valuing these particular E&Ms per that CPT code, like 299212s or 299213s? In a way, yes. I mean, they say, for that example I gave with the flap for the different values, they don't take the RVU value in full for all of those, because again, they make it into a package. So they do
Mhm.
shift it, so you don't get full RVU credit for each one of them. But that's what they take into account when they make the package. They're saying that in this package, you are supposed to provide these services, and they're bundling it together and giving you one fee that encompasses all of that work.
Right, because you would expect that even during that post-operative period, I would imagine that although you may meet the requirements of the 99212, 99213, you still don't have an extensive history because we're just following one condition that we're considering. And whether or not it's improving or not, do we make changes to the plan of care? Do we have to add a medication or not? If we're just doing that check in, check out, they're being very generous with the concept of a 213 for those types of visits there. So I don't think that they're giving the full RVU to each one of those because
Right.
the requirement doesn't quite fit a traditional 213, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and that made me think too. I mean, yes, you have to think back to the point too, that the E&Ms back then weren't like the E&Ms today. So it's not just about medical decision making. When they did those, it was about the three key components, and you had to meet at
Right.
least two of them. And in that code, the 20639, whichever code I said, two,
20969.
20969, they have the 299214s, that kind of stuff. When you think of it back then, um, you didn't, because you were looking at wherever the wound site, or for whatever it was, you're probably doing a problem focused, maybe an expanded problem focused, exam,
But it
depending
could
on the
go
specialty.
to a 214. I would imagine that they use that as their, it's up to a 214 type of thing that they're allowing if it was
Yeah.
infected, or if it was did require an alternate plan of care. Um,
Yeah. I think it was more, they were thinking of complexity, like MDM, like we're doing it now,
mhm, mhm.
so when they first are post-op and they're coming in, they're really in a lot of pain. They're still on pain meds. They're still on antibiotics. They're still on, so, that part of it you're doing, because sometimes, there's not much of an exam that's going to go on at all, because it is just like getting the patient in front of you. You check the wound
Right.
site maybe, and then all of it is about, are you sleeping? Are you resting? Are you eating? Are you following my orders? Are you, can we start titrating down this one drug? And,
Right.
so I think the complexity for those at the beginning, is much heavier. And then as you get further along in the 90 days, they should be improving.
Mhm.
So you have less of it. They're coming off the pain meds. They're coming off of restrictions. They're coming off of, so the visits start to go down in severity. So that's kind of the idea that they had in putting the package together. But yeah, I mean, if you looked at a note from the first post-surgical, second post-surgical, where they're crediting you those fours
Right.
on their own, they probably wouldn't level out to a 4 maybe.
Maybe not today, it wouldn't. And remember that if they are looking at other conditions, they can report that separately identifiable evaluation and management for the evaluation and management of those other conditions, using the proper modifier there. So back to this topic, those that are included are specifically for that surgery, focused on that surgery there. So yeah, I think that
Yes.
when they do revalue them, we may not see those inclusions of 214s. It might be more of a, we allow 2213s and 2212s rather than
Yep.
2214s.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I have Lady.
Lady, there's
I know,
Lady
I'm so glad she's back.
Martinez. Mwah.
Glad to see you back, Lady.
She's one of
This
my
is an
favorite
interesting
people.
point. I know, I love her. About the RVUs. So yeah, that's what you have to take into account. Oh, Kimberly's making a comment. She says, I really won. I think I really wonder, not I really
Yeah.
wonderful. The surgeons are wonderful, but I think she really
Or wouldn't it
wonders
be wonderful?
if the surgeons
We'll make it work,
even know
Kimberly. Don't worry.
if the surgeons know about all that's included. Probably not. No.
They don't. They look at the
No.
one, they look at the final number, to be honest. And again, no disrespect to any of the surgeons, but they look at the one number, and in their mind's eye, it's for the moment of surgery
Yeah.
and the complexity of that moment of surgery. And I don't believe that they really know what is all included in that global package for
Yeah.
the global period.
Yeah, totally agree. Because as I said, you've said, and I've said, when we talk about the 99024, when we're telling them you should report it, the first comment always back was, we don't get paid for it. And I'm like, yeah, you
You
actually
do.
do get paid for it. So I definitely think there's not they don't get the idea of all, and especially not all of it. Like the one I read off, all of
Mhm.
these are bundled, all of those hospital visits, 8 hospital visits. So I think that going through and looking at these, is something you want to take and look at your surgeon's procedures that they're doing, look at that time value study and see what they are bundling into those, and then think to yourself, what could happen to that value if all of that stuff went away? Because in that code I was talking about, you got 120 minutes pre-evaluation time, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you had 540 minutes of the procedure, and then 32 minutes post-op. So 680, so about 700 minutes, right? But
Mhm.
because of all the E&Ms, the value of the code is valued on 1,048 minutes.
Right.
So that's 300 minutes that would be going away, if they started to not do it, and take those things away, and not value the package as that and just do it as the surgery. So that's a lot of minutes. That's a
Now,
third.
I have been on both sides of the fence where I've heard opinions on educating providers on the business of medicine in med school. And I
Yes,
get it that payment really shouldn't factor into the quality of medicine. However, since HIPAA says that in order for us to all get paid, we need to use the same code sets that are out there, I feel like we do our providers a disadvantage by not teaching them what those code sets are and what they represent. So if
I
they're forced
agree.
to use that for reimbursement purposes, then why wouldn't we teach them what it is, right?
Yes.
What does it include?
Yeah. And I'm glad that for a lot of some of the medical schools have started to offer, some business class, some coding things, and some basic things
Mhm.
that let them know. But a lot of the medical schools, they can make their own curriculums. And
Right.
I went to a couple of the medical schools where I was living in Illinois once, and I offered to do some classes at no charge for
Yeah.
the residents, just to kind of get them to understand what things are. And we were told that the medical schools are there to teach them how to be physicians, not to teach them how to be business people. And they turned it down.
The funny thing is that here, Florida Atlantic University, Kaiser University, and Nova Southwestern University, they have all, I have been a guest lecturer, and I've had other colleagues be a guest lecturer to their NP and PA programs, not to the physician programs. And again, all they get is a 2-hour presentation of coding. What is the coding from a conceptual type of approach? Because in 2 hours, you can't teach all of the ins and outs of coding. You would need, of course, maybe a good 6-week course to teach that. Our coders take a 12-week course to become a coder. So although I appreciate maybe some of the mid-levels, extenders, NPPs, QHPs, I did a presentation yesterday and I felt like I was just talking about alphabet soup. But for them, and oftentimes they are better documentation, better coding.
Yeah.
But we need to, education is always going to be the key. It's the key for everything. Even to have good surgeons out there, they're always doing continuing education, learning about new technology, new techniques. Why would they not also learn about how they get paid?
Yeah. If they want to keep their doors open, that's something that you would think they would kind of be paying attention to. We have a couple. Now, I don't exactly. Lisa says, says, I've been seeing job openings for that. And I'm not sure what she's been seeing job openings for. So, and she got a big smiley face there. So she's making it funny. So Lisa, you have to explain it a little bit. So we know what
maybe
your,
she means when I talk to providers and they say, oh, any doctor who's reading that is going to understand what I mean. And I have to say, you know what, doc, I'm really sorry, but there's a shortage of cardiothoracic surgeons who would like to process claims for a living.
And then we had a couple comment on the PQRS. Now, how about the PQRS for care Part B and MIPS final rule? So again,
that would be a whole nother talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably one that would be a good one, because she was the second person to make a comment about PQRS. So yeah, that is a good one that we could do a follow-up one on.
And I wonder if Rand, like I said, I didn't get a chance to read there's 3 reports actually from Rand, and I didn't get a chance to read all 3 of them, but I wonder if Rand took that into consideration, some of those metrics that we are collecting through PQRS, through MIPS, through, even some of the HEDIS measures that providers are doing. I wonder if they took that into consideration, that quality of data, as they were looking at these global packages, because that might really give the explanation of why people are healthier, why they're having less complications, because we are doing more preventive measures with patients.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. Because we're doing better as a whole. It makes the outcomes better.
Yeah.
And then, and she said she's the teaching for doctors. So that's what she saw so that's good. That's
I volunteer, Lisa. So sign me up.
Yeah. I said, please send us forward a message, Christine and I, with where you saw those, because we'd like to follow up on those. And then Kimberly, she said she couldn't type it. we love you, Kimberly. It's okay.
Absolutely.
But she was surprised about the time for the, taking out the ENI, this 300 minutes out of that procedure. That's a ton. That's going to be big.
Absolutely. And
Lisa made a comment about it's true about the PAs and the NPs about being better documenters, but yeah, I think they pay a little bit more attention. Now, I've worked with some crackerjack docs that are right on it, but yes, as a whole, I would say, they're a little bit better. But I wanted to also show, so first you want to go, and if you don't want to drudge through the whole 2066 pages, you know, uh, there is to make your comment at the beginning of the proposed rule. Oops, I'm sorry. No, where did it go? Here. Electronically, you can make a comment. So you don't have to mail anything or do anything. Why is that up there? Hold on. You can go electronically to regulations.gov and say that you are commenting on the global surgery package, and then make your nice little comment. And it doesn't have to be a 6-page explanation with all these, but just give your point, because they're going to take all of those and count them up, so if you're a pro or con, make a comment in there. Or if you think of a different way, like looking at the RAND study, if there's something in there that you think might be a better solution,
I always say
to
that
go and
try to
make
find
that.
sorry, Betty, try to
No.
find a solution to go with your comment. I'm pro or against, here's why, but if you did this, or if you analyzed this, then there would be a better outcome there. I find that sometimes those comments with any type of possible rational solution, I mean, you can't just say, let's just pay them all one fee, be done with it. You can't do that, right? Of course. But if you do have a thought about it, finish that thought out. What could work for that scenario there? And you'll be surprised. CMS takes all of these into consideration. You might be actually quoted in the final rule as, that rationale that made the difference, that you sparked somebody. It takes all of us working together.
Yeah. And you have 60 days. It went on July 29th. So there's 60 days. So till the end of September, you have to make your comment. So you still have a little over a month, to kind of come up with and formulate what you would like to say. Because we always look and see, the AMA and the societies, and, they are always making comments. But sometimes like, of course, they've all made comments about the conversion factor. That's a given. Not that you can't make a comment about that, but look for things in the proposed rule that will make a difference to your practice. You don't have to comment on everything out of the 2,000 god awful amount
But
number
we're
of pages.
boots on the ground. We're the
Exactly.
ones who are here fighting the good fight. Who better to comment than us?
Yep. And here, if you want to send it in by mail, is the address that you send it in. So, and it's in the front of the proposed rule, that will state, where to send these and with this information in it. So that's all in there for you to find. But I thought I would also put it up for people so that they could, have it here if they were looking here too. And we have let me take this off first because we have a couple more comments. Let's see. Since Catherine says, since now some outpatient procedures are getting done in the office, is a big opening to bill for this global inclusive. So there's I think with the moving into the ASC, might come in, and thinking about that too, how you don't have to be inpatient only for certain things, having them done in the ASC, then you're not going to have like that procedure 899213. They're not in the hospital.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
We're starting to have to look at all of those things. John makes a comment about those modifiers we talked about. What would they do with modifiers 54, 55, and 56? Some orthos are used to transfer of care. And that's what we were discussing. Yeah. Yep. If the decision that they make is to do away with it, then we won't need those modifiers anymore. So, I guess depending on your thought process, it might be not too bad of a thing to have 3 less modifiers to worry about. But I never saw the problem with the modifiers. I saw the problem with the coordination.
Correct.
That's where I saw the problem.
Correct.
So,
because you're absolutely driving up the cost of a procedure when you're getting paid the global, but you're having someone else come in and do the post-operative care like primary care. So if the ortho is delegating that to the primary care is going to report it with evaluation and management codes, which I'm sure I've heard this a million times. We'll just slap a modifier on it to get it paid. Suddenly you have a procedure that should have cost, say, $5,000, but because we've outsourced that post-op care, we're now looking at a $6,500 procedure. And that's shifting that a little bit. That definitely affects the overall balancing of the budget. We can't accurately balance the budget when I don't want to use the word manipulation, but we're manipulating those payments into larger payments for procedures because, the global package isn't quite understood properly.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, they always are giving the alarm that, the Medicare Trust Fund is getting dry and it's getting, well, the point you just made with what you just said, when that happens, that's maybe one of the reasons, so we're kind of being custodians for ourselves in that aspect, because we're going to need it at some point, and so are our children, and we have to make sure we're paying for what we should pay for.
We all have skin in the game. When you get paid on Friday and you look at that paycheck, they take out of your paycheck for the Medicare fund. Fund. That's not a guarantee that that's going to you. It doesn't go into a little account with your Social Security number on it. It goes to the fund. And so if the fund is being abused, that's your hard-earned wage. Think about that, guys. It is personal.
Yep. So we have to protect it, and we want to see our physicians get paid, but because we need our income from those jobs, right? But everybody has to be fairly apportioned for, and most of the physicians, when I work with them, and we get into these kinds of discussions, they tell me, Betty, I don't want to be paid less than I deserve, but I also don't think it's fair to be paid more than I deserve. I just want what I deserve. And so I think, in answering them back in this way and showing them, a couple of their procedures with these physician time things and saying, this is what you're being paid for. So this is all that's bundled into that package, to where they do have a better understanding of, no, it's not just the surgery that you're being paid for. That's why, it's a major one, and it's 90 day, it's a 90-day global, that, and this is what the 90 days includes, because then, we could go back and have that discussion about the whole H&P thing, right? Do the surgeons do their own? No, they send them back, right? To their GP or to their internist, or, they can do it. They'll do your physical for you,
So we are, again, allowing more, paying more than what that surgery is designated to pay for.
Yeah. So we have to really, I know everything too is being constrained these days with payments and reimbursement getting driven. And, the big thing in the proposed rule about the conversion factor, I mean, it's shameful, this is how things are going, and people really have to take into account why we're doing these things and why these things at some point are going to become necessary, like kicking the can down the road year after year, with Congress voting to, repeal that and push that off. At some point, we're going to have to pony up. And that's what we're seeing this year with the sequester of the doing it in portions and in the quarters. At some point, judgment day for those kind of things is coming, and it's going to have to be taken out somewhere. We can't keep kicking it down the road. There has to be something that's figured out with these things.
I think that we're going to see something change. I think the fact that they've given us 5 years to think about it, that we've had these studies that have been completed, and with rational recommendations that we're putting now out to the public to opine on and come back to us, I really do think that we're going to see these changes. We're going to see something change with the global package. And, I say it every time I present, that's the only thing that we can truly count on in this industry is change.
And Misty, yes, about the RAND report. If you go into the proposed rule where it talks about all this stuff in the global surgery package, it gives the things on the RAND. And it gives you links in it if you're looking at the electronic copy, where it links off to the RAND study, or it links into the CMS site, which links into all of the RAND studies, because there were multiple ones done, and the CMS internal studies too that Christine was also and I were also mentioning earlier. So that's where you can go to find those.
Trying to find a place that I can drop a link in the chat. And maybe I'll drop a link in the chat after we finish on LinkedIn. I'll drop a link in the chat, but it's really easy to find when you go to the CMS website. It's under Medicare, Medicare fee for service, physician's fee schedule, and global surgery data collection. So I'll drop a link in there. But this is an awesome tool to look at. If you do any provider education, bring the facts with you, show them why you're explaining this to them. Why is it important that they are not reporting a separate evaluation and management on the same day as the procedure if the evaluation and management isn't separately identifiable? Because here, look at all the minutes that they've included in for that preoperative visit.
Yep. Well, good. So a lot of stuff to think about. And, our time is already up, believe it or not.
Wow. That went by so fast.
I know. You can. Sometimes I always think, how are we going to talk about this and then you just start talking. Then I'm like, really, I have to stop already. So, but thanks everybody for joining us. Y'all had great chat and great discussion on the topic. Good questions. Appreciate all of it. Christine, thank you for being my guest today. And here's Christine Hall's information down there on the bottom for her LinkedIn, so you can follow her on LinkedIn. And again, the Sterling Global is
Sterling Global Solutions.
Yeah, the website.
It's just Sterling Global Solutions, with Sterling with an I. We are originally from Scotland by way of South America. So
interesting. So
and
it's
Spanish
a .com,
Scots, huh?
And it's a .com.
It is a .com. Yes, okay. SterlingGlobalSolutions.com, and you can find out all of the upcoming events. If you have any needs, we have a service page. There's a blog. There are links to different podcasts that we follow, resources that are available. So lots of information on that site altogether. And don't forget to join me every other Thursday for Coding with Christine Hall. Our good friend Terry Fletcher's coming on next week.
Oh, cool. Neat. I got to make sure I get in on that. So I'll be watching.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. So she said it was an awesome discussion. So that's good. And a lot of it is because of the great comments and discussion that we get from the people that are calling in and watching, right? So again, thank you. And we will see you in a couple of weeks on another Baby Friday. And I'll see what happened in history on that day. I think that's going to be a new little thing I start to do, because
I started a trend
in that. I know you did. All right. Well, thanks, my friend. Good to see you.
Thank you. You too, Betty.
Thanks, everybody.